Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here. So today is Wednesday, which means it's time for another thought-provoking, ponderous video. And this week's ponderous topic is going to be all about size, and that timeless question, does size really matter? Now, of course, I mean it in the context of buying silver and gold. I want to talk about the pros and cons of basically buying tiny denomination silver or gold, all the way up to the benefits and cons of buying larger denominations of silver and gold. It's a topic which I've seen asked quite a lot recently on various forums, so I thought I'd share my own thoughts and opinions on it. Do remember, it is just my own thoughts and opinions. It's not financial advice. I'm nowhere near a financial planner, nor an investment guru. I really am just a guy who likes to buy shiny things and make videos about them. So with that disclaimer out the way, there are so many different options when you are a new stacker and investor, and I guess the only real sort of simple answer is that it's going to vary from person to person what is right for you. So I'm not going to go and hash up old topics which I've talked about, deciding what's right for you as a new stacker or investor. But needless to say, it will vary from person to person. There are benefits though for having a sort of variety of sizes within your stack, as I see it anyway. Now they can range from the teeny tiny. So here is something that's quite special. This is a half gram, that's right, half gram of 999 gold, and this is something that I got from Laura Blade as part of the the Christmas gift box. It really was a giftmas though, she did give a lot of stuff in there. But this kind of highlights just the absolute difference that you can have. You can have a half gram of gold here, really tiny gold bar. I mean, it's so thin, it's wafer thin. You have to be careful with it because you could probably fold it in half. But yeah, so you can range all the way from that up to huge kilo gold bars, but I don't have any of those. But 1 ounce coins is probably the other sort of big size that you'll be looking at potentially. Now there are benefits to both. Obviously this is a lot smaller, so if you were to buy it and then you want to look to sell it at some point in the future, you don't have to go and find a buyer that wants to buy a whole 1 ounce of gold. They can just buy a small half gram of gold. Of course, the negatives are that often these smaller denominations of gold come at higher premiums. They sometimes will have quite significant premiums, in fact. And you look at the silver version of some of these tiny bars, the 1 gram silver bars, and I don't have any of those here, but I do have obviously a lot of silver shot. And the silver shot can be an interesting kind of concept as well, because if you have a lot of these tiny silver pieces, if there was a situation in the future where economies collapsed and fiat currency collapsed completely, and we resolved back to times when silver and gold and precious metals were used as that kind of barter exchange form of currency, then having a vast quantity of silver shot like this, where you've got a whole load of different weights, these range from just half a gram per little nugget to some of the bigger ones can be a couple of grams each. And that would be a lot more useful than having certainly a giant silver coin. If you had this big old kookaburra and you wanted to buy a bottle of water for somebody for a couple of grams of silver, what you're going to do? You're going to shave off a little bit of this. It's just not practical. So in terms of that kind of prepping for that kind of economic collapse type situation, obviously having smaller denominations of silver and gold is important, especially because maybe in the run up to that kind of eventuality, the prices of gold and silver will probably inflate quite significantly, and the last thing you want to be doing is trying to find a buyer. If this was to grow exponentially, $10,000 for one coin, whereas you could sell that for $500. There's a huge difference there, and it can make all the difference in the world if you are looking to sort of release funds in those types of situations. Now, having said all that, it's not really something that weighs on my mind as an investor and stacker, but I do understand that it is a very important thing to some people. But it's just not really the reason I look to buy smaller denominations of silver. In fact, I don't really tend to buy that much smaller denominations of silver myself anymore. Now, aside from the fact that I buy kilos and kilos worth of silver shot, that's all really for the business rather than anything else. The sort of coin world, I started out by buying lots of these 1 ounce silver coins. That was the kind of bread and butter of the stack when I started a couple of years ago, and I thought that was right for me at the time. I'd just gotten into stacking, just got used to the idea of putting this money aside in the form of silver. So for me at the time, putting the budget that I had I thought it would be best to get a diverse bunch of coins, and I was a collector as well, so I thought it would be good to do that rather than to throw it all into just one, perhaps 1 ounce of gold instead. So I did that, and that was fine for me. But priorities change, and goals change, and budgets change, and obviously, you get the gold or silver bug, and you want more and more and more. And so my strategies have changed over time, and now I look very much to those kind of bigger denominations. And I think probably the biggest factor that plays into that for me is around space. In terms of stacking for the future, 20, 30 years time for pension, gold is probably going to be the main focus because it's a lot easier for me to stack that much in value. This one double eagle here is worth maybe 5 or 6 of these giant kookaburras. In terms of weight and allocation of weight, it's very much easier for me to stack the gold than it is the silver. However, having said that, silver is very cheap at the moment when you compare it to sort of the gold in terms of the gold-silver ratio, and it would be silly not to kind of hedge your bets and have some silver in there as well. So for me personally, I do like having these bigger denominations of silver. I do obviously still have some of the smaller ones, and if I ever was in a situation where I needed to sell some of my stack for an emergency, I do have that range of different values which I can look to liquidate, and I think that's a really important thing. Let's just jump out of what I was talking about before and talk about that. So one thing which I see so much of is people, they get the silver bug, they get the gold bug, perhaps they get the stack envy bug, and that's something, does size really matter? Ultimately, no, size doesn't really matter. If you're collecting and saving silver or gold and you're buying only a couple of silver ounces a month, then if that's right for you, that's right for you, and that's great. And for some people, that would be a big commitment, big investment. But then you might see, people like myself or people like Shadow Stack, Silver Slacker, Numistacker, loads of other people out there making these huge stack videos or showing off, big purchases which they've made. And it's important to keep grounded, I think, as an individual, as a stacker, and not to go whole hog. And one way to protect yourself against that is to buy smaller denomination silver. If you buy just a couple of ounces of silver each month, then obviously you're going to protect yourself a little bit more. You're going to have a little bit less caught up in that, locked away in that sort of precious metal vault, as it were. And I think that's a really important thing, because it is probably the biggest pitfall for a lot of investors and stackers out there. They overcommit, and then something happens. Their boiler breaks, their car breaks down, and they need to release funds, and they have to sell silver and gold at a time which is not of their choosing, which is the biggest reason why people lose out in gold and silver. So I think that's really important. Anyway, I've sort of digressed. In terms of the different sizes, personally, I just like raw bullion for the future, in terms of the different sizes. And that would potentially suggest that you should be looking just at the cheapest type of stuff which you can get, which might be the giant sized pieces of gold or silver, because you often get a better price per ounce. Certainly, if you're buying individual coins on a monthly basis, you probably will be paying more. You'll also be paying more in postage costs. So if you're just buying 1 ounce of silver a month, you're probably going to be paying postage, because most places will need to charge postage just on one coin. So that's definitely something to consider. Whether or not you want to save up and make one purchase in a year rather than lots of multiple small purchases throughout the year. But yeah, so those are kind of just my thoughts on the topic. I think it's an interesting one. Do what's right for you is my advice. Again, I said at the start of the video that this is not financial advice, but in terms of personal advice to somebody out there who's looking to get involved in this, make the decisions based on your own circumstances and not based on what everyone else is doing. And then keep to them as best you can. Obviously situations change like they did with me, but if they do, come up with those new plans and just put them in place, basically. But it'd be interesting to know what you guys think. What are your thoughts on this topic? What do you prefer? Do you prefer the small denomination stuff or the large denomination stuff? It'd be really great to get your guys' thoughts and opinions. If you'd like to share those, then please do put them in the comment section below. If you like this video, put a thumbs up on it, share it around on social media. That would be very helpful indeed. Otherwise, all that's left for me to say is a massive thank you for watching, and please make sure that you like, share, comment and subscribe for more.